When most people think of Canada, they imagine a calm, English-speaking country. But then, they land in Quebec. Suddenly, it feels like they've stepped into a different nation. From street signs to schools, menus to movies, everything is in French. Not also in French. Only in French. But here's the twist. Quebec isn't part of France. It's a province of Canada. So why does it feel like a country of its own? Why is Quebec the only place in North America where French dominates? To find out, we must go back, not 50 years, but 500. Back to a time when Canada was not Canada. It was France. Long before Canada was known for hockey and maple syrup, this land was a playground of empires, and one of them was France. When we say Canada, we think of English, but in Quebec, it feels like Europe. French streets, French voices, French classrooms. But why? The year is 1534. A French explorer named Jacques Cartier sails across the Atlantic and claims this vast, unknown land for King Francis I of France. He wasn't here to plant trees, he came to plant power. 70 years later, in 1608, another man, Samuel de Champlain, founded a small but strategic settlement on the cliffs of the St. Lawrence River. Lawrence River. That settlement became Quebec City. But the real question is, why did they choose to stay here? Why build an empire in such a cold, wild place? 1. Strategic location. Quebec sat high on a cliff with a narrow river below. It was a perfect natural fortress. From here, they could control river trade, block enemies, and watch everything. 2. Access to the St. Lawrence River. This river was like a superhighway into North America. It gave them access to indigenous trade routes in the interior of the continent. 3. Rich fur trade. Beaver fur was the gold of the 1600s. It was used for hats in Europe and sold at high prices. Quebec became the center of fur collection, trade, and export. 4. Religious ambitions. Catholic missionaries saw Quebec as a land of spiritual opportunity. They came to convert indigenous people and spread Christianity, with full support from the French crown. 5. France's imperial dream. France didn't want just colonies. It wanted to build a new France, a permanent replica of French civilization on this side of the Atlantic. 6. Protected by nature. Compared to other regions, Quebec was harder to invade. It had mountains, forests, and rivers all around, creating a natural shield. Geography became cultural armor. Now they had their stronghold here. But real question is how to expand culture, religion, language so fast and so deep. 1. French in every home. From the moment a child was born, French was non-negotiable. Not just at home, but in schools, churches, courts, everywhere. Children learned to read, write, and even pray in French. 2. Les filles du roi, the king's daughters. Now this is fascinating. Between 1663 and 1673, France sent over 800 young women to Quebec. They came to marry, raise families, and populate New France. And it worked. These women didn't just give birth to children, they gave birth to a culture that survived generations. 3. Catholicism. The soul of Quebec. Churches and priests were everywhere, not just converting, but educating. Catholicism became the soul of Quebec, and it was taught with strict discipline and devotion. 4th, French civil law. While most of Canada follows British common law, Quebec doesn't. It still uses French civil law, brought over by early settlers. Even today, Quebec's legal system speaks French literally. 5. Peace and alliance with indigenous tribes. Unlike other empires, the French didn't conquer, but they collaborated with the Huron, Algonquin, and Montagnais. They married into indigenous families, shared survival skills, and traded knowledge. The result? A unique community. The Métis. They are still alive and living in Quebec. 6. Control over schools and hospitals. Even after the British took control, French-speaking religious orders kept their grip where it mattered: education and healthcare. Now it's time to know, why did Quebec stay French when others turned English? By the 1700s, New France stretched from Quebec to Louisiana. But Quebec? It was always the heart for France people, and its heartbeat was French. In the 1750s, Britain and France were at war. The 7 Years' War changed everything. In 1763, France surrendered Canada through the Treaty of Paris. Suddenly, French-speaking Quebec was under British rule. A Catholic people ruled by a Protestant king. Now the British had two choices: force the French to change and risk rebellion, or allow them to keep their identity. They chose peace. In 1774, the Quebec Act was passed, a law that shocked the world. It allowed Quebecers to keep their language, their Catholic religion, and their French civil law. The French stayed loyal. They didn't join the American Revolution, but more importantly, they stayed French. When Canada became a country in 1867, Quebec joined as a founding province. But from day one, it stood apart. At that time, English spread like wildfire from Vancouver to Toronto to Atlantic provinces. But Quebec chose French. Yet the French began to feel squeezed. English crept into schools, courts, and shops. Whispers of worry turned into calls for action. In the 1960s, Quebec erupted, not with war, but with willpower. It was called the Quiet Revolution, but its message was thunderous. The youth demanded change, better schools, economic freedom, and most of all wants protection of their language. In 1977, Quebec passed Bill 101, the Charter of the French language. From that moment, French became the only official language of Quebec. Immigrant children had to attend French schools, street signs, government forms, all in French. This action was bold, and it worked. And that's why, in an English-speaking country, one province still speaks only French. And even today, when new immigrants arrived, they were not the ones changing Quebec. Quebec changed them. They must have to learn French. Even today, the debate continues. Some Quebecers still dream of becoming their own country. In 1995, they almost did voting. The vote for independence was almost 50%. They believe if they lose French, they lose Quebec. So, why does Quebec speak only French? Because it was French before it was Canadian. Because it fought to keep its culture when others gave it up. Because in Quebec, language isn't just how you speak, it's who you are. Is Quebec still part of Canada, or is it quietly becoming something else? And if you had the choice, would you live here? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hidden Pages, where forgotten voices rise and history dares you to listen.